a steady procession of accomplished and talented magicians to our function. Magic people who not only are proficient at the art, but have the passion to perform and the desire and willingness to share that passion with others in the magic community. Our guest promises to add luster to that eminent group. Ron Bell is our presenter today. Ron is a member of the Order of Merlin and a member of the Merlin's Web editorial board. And as you're aware now, the web is now available on the internet. He truly has been a traveling international performer, holding memberships of rings in Brussels and Ottawa, and he now calls Ring 183 in Victoria his home base. He's been deeply involved and interested in magic for more than 55 years, starting at the age of 11, and has shown his proficiency both in close-up and on stage at national and international conventions in Canada and across Europe. He's a contributor to several magic magazines, and in 1972 won the award for the best effect in a linking ring Hocus Pocus parade. He's also involved in many other IBM programs and services. Now, Ron spends much of his time in Victoria with Project Magic, a program for entertaining and inspiring the less fortunate with magic and teaching, and he's volunteered to spend a few minutes describing that program if anybody here is interested. If I was to sum up Ron's accomplishment in the world of magic, I'd say this man is a heavy dude. Now, for those of you that tend to loll or sit sloppily in your chairs, let me tell you that Ron spent 35 years in the RCAF, retiring as a brigadier general. So my advice is to sit up smartly, or we'll all be doing push-ups or marching around the room in double time. When I heard we were going to have a brigadier general here, I really got concerned because during my time in the Air Force, brigadier generals were the enemy. However, this has changed and hope is on our side. So, fellow magicians, I consider it a privilege today to introduce our guest. So would you please give a warm Calgary welcome to our featured guest, Ron Bell.
Well, you hear your history traced out for you like that. Congratulations, Ron. You found out what my age is. Someone already gave it in there, and I guess you calculated. 42. 42. As far as being the general, everyone says, good. That's because I'm a magician. That's the only way you can get to be that rank, is to be a magician. No, I've not. It's done a great deal for me over the 55 years I've been performing it, and I want to give something back. And that's why I do get involved in various programs. I won't tell you about Project Magic being a magic program until we get towards the end of this afternoon, depending on how much more you can accept at that stage. It's an absolutely fascinating program which helps you as a magician develop while you're helping other people. As far as what I will be doing for you, I thought what I call an eclectic program, which would be a real mix of close-up, parlor, some of which could be done on the stage. I have a very strong philosophy about lectures. I've sat and watched some of the best lecturers in the world. Not so very long ago, Leonard Green. I don't know if you've seen a Leonard Green lecture. You sit there, you're totally fascinated. You find out how it's done, and you're still totally fascinated and bamboozled, but in truth, very few of us have the personalities or the opportunity to sit behind a table in the protected almost environment in which he performs. It's brilliant to watch, it's lovely to see the action, but it's not necessarily something that you would go home and do. And I find with many lectures, I'm seeing brilliant work, and I'm really watching a cabaret show or a performance rather than a learning opportunity. So what I hope, I'm going to give some fairly basic stuff. I never call it simple. Magic is not simple. The simplest of magic is as good as you want to make it. Not because it's complicated, but it takes hard work. So it is never simple. And I hate the thought that it is easy. Easy connotes something that isn't sort of worth doing very much. takes a lot of work. I don't know if you saw Dr. Bob Doggett, who came through and did some fine lecture. He called it easy stuff. And he started off with about 4 variations of the Zarrow shuffle, followed by a whole bunch of double lifts. That's easy stuff. Maybe to someone who's been doing it every day for 30, 40 years, but not to the general group. So I'm going to offer you some magic that maybe you've seen, but I've added my own twist to it. I will discuss either before I do it, to some extent the genesis of that trick to show you how these things develop, show it to you, and then explain it to you, and why I do it in a certain way. I believe the first trick you do is probably the most important. Some people will argue about the last, because that's the impression you leave. But if your first trick isn't good, you may never get to the last, because the people will have left in many cases. If you have a kind of a close-up group at a bar, they drift away because they're bored. Your first trick is the most important. It must also be the trick that makes you feel at ease. That is terribly important. Don't go into a knuckle-bending, finger-flinging thing unless you're so good at it, because that first trick must be a success. And it should also try to convey to some extent your personality. The personality you want to create for however long you're going to be in front of the people. So it takes an awful lot of thinking. Something that you can do reasonably well, preferably has some fun in it, because to me, close-up and most magic, the element of fun is very significant. Serious magic, yes, there's a room for it. Let's face it, most successful magic, usually there's a twinkle in it somewhere, in either the way it's presented, the wording, or the actual trick itself. Let me give you an example. My favorite starting trick for close-up or bar can be done right under their noses. Takes some practice, but not a lot. I usually say, and this is going to be awkward because you see me as you know me as the magician, so all these little acts and things I put on are a little artificial. But I would come up to the table and I'd say, you know what makes me so good looking and debonair, so perspicacious, and so sagacious? I have a vitamin. Now, not everyone is privileged to have the vitamins that I take, but these are remarkable. I actually take nuts. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, nuts are what will bring you the magic of life. I keep them in my sucrates box, as you can see. I use just 3 nuts. There you are. You can see the 3 nuts. It's a heavy iron program, which is guaranteed, because you're a bit close, I don't have to go around doing all this. 3 nuts total is all that you need for this particular piece of magic. I'm the only magician in the world, in fact, who has 1, 2, 3 of these. Now, I want you to watch. 1, 2, and the third one goes into my pocket. 2 nuts in the left hand, 1 in my pocket. Well, not exactly. You see, I actually have 1, 2, and 3. Now, I did tell you these nuts were absolutely extraordinary. So you have 3 nuts here, and as you can see, so you have 3 nuts. I will place 1 on my fist, and 2 on my fist, and you can see the third. 1 goes in the pocket, 2 in the left hand. Well, not exactly. You see, I actually have 1, 2, 3 nuts still there. Now you're beginning to catch on, of course. 1 nut, 2 nuts, 3 nuts, 1 puck goes into the pocket. Yeah, we got that the first time. Got 2 in the hand? Well, not exactly, because you've been following me, you know that's the case. 1 nut, 2 nuts, and oh my goodness, I've been screwed. Well, not exactly. You see, this is actually a carriage bolt. And you can tell a carriage bolt because it's got this big, big head that sticks out there. That's the one in the fist. A carriage bolt and 2 nuts. Now, here I am going into an absolutely terrifying, death-defying feat, which only myself and 1 guy in Australia can do, and he recently stopped because he went into the nut house. Now, I take one from my pocket, and wow, that's a nut going on the bolt. That's crazy. One more. Just get it on tight. Now, a carriage bolt with two nuts on it. And close up, you can really see the carriage bolt. Right away, I usually lean over to someone and say, I've got to do another show. Will you take the nuts off? And of course you stitch this and you're on. Now the only claim here is that it uses a few different moves from the standard 1, 2, 3 into the pocket because it uses a shuttle pass, which is very good at close-up. When you're very close up, the shuttle is very good use. And it uses less of the palming. Also, there's a little bit on how the fist is. Let me go from A to Z. Carriage bolt. That's called a carriage bolt. A plain carriage bolt in the right pocket. Another carriage bolt with two nuts obviously fitted on it, also in the pocket. And, let's get all my, excuse me, my nuts out. 4 nuts in the. Now, one of the problems that you often come across in books, people say, start off with such and such in your hand before the show starts. And you see people going around with a sweaty palm because they've been holding a palm coin. And when it comes time to do it, the hand is so slippery, the thing won't hold. And you've been through, you understand that. Because the MC's taken 5 more minutes than he was supposed to. To get away from that, as it's got to be self-contained, nothing in my hands, it's all in the box. So you tell whatever story you want. Secrets are kind of fun, because there's magic secrets and all that, but it doesn't have to be any box. But you pour all 4 of them into your hand. They can't see it, so you lie like hell. Call them 3. I have 3 nuts. You've shown this, sort of set the thing off. It's good to have them in a tin because it makes a noise. Sound is very, very important in magic. Out in this direction. You don't want a silent idea. Here's banging of the nuts in the tin, 3 nuts. You then do the first part of a shuttle pass, put your thumb on one, and pass 3 over. So you've got one here. Everyone can do that. It's terribly basic, same as if with a sponge ball. So you've got 3 nuts here. You're going to do the same thing again, going back, and 3 there, which is very natural because you've usually got people on either side of you, and that's completely normal. Just let the hand hang. So you put 1, 2, I'm the only magician in the world with 3 of these. Just let it never make a rude joke out of it. You just let it hang a little, and if they want, some people will say 1, 2, 3, ha ha. Now, a lot of the times people will do this and throw it in, but I think you want to disguise the smaller movement, the bigger movement, a little more consciously than just doing that. Because then it distracts totally. The difference is, if you turn your hand, for instance, like that, the movement being a little bit bigger there takes the transfer, makes it a little less obvious. So you've done the transfer, let me just make sure you understand that. The first one goes in 1, turn, the second one goes in, they both go in there. My hands are getting sticky. Both go in there, and 1 into your pocket. That actually does not go into your pocket, you palm it out again. Notice you've got 3 here. Turn the left hand, 1 in the pocket. Well, not exactly. Play on the words. And put them down again, 2 and 3. Pick them up, 1, 2, 3. Do the shuttle pass. Very deceptive indeed. Show the 3 here. Now this is a nice thing when you're really close up, because you literally, you don't open your hand this time, you place them on the top. So they actually see the 2 nuts, which is very nice, and they see it there. There'd be nothing clearer than that. 2 nuts in my left hand, 1 nut in my pocket, and let them sink into your hand. This nut goes in the pocket. Pulls out the bolt without the nuts on it. You'll feel it, it's pretty easy. So, come back to it, well, not exactly. 1, 2, 3 again. Now you're beginning to watch me. Do the second, there again, and this time you transfer the bolt on the second nut, so it goes 1, 2, 3. You've got 2 nuts and a bolt in the left hand, 1 in the right hand. Goes to your pocket, pick up the bolt with the 2 nuts on this time. It's easy to find. You'll feel it right away. Out this comes 1. Make sure the nuts go down first, and make sure the bolt is upright, even if you have to do a little twiddling, but you can feel it, so that when you take your hand away and turn away a bit, as I do, then look, oh, I've been screwed. That's the natural thing people say, so it looks like a screw, but it obviously isn't. And you can legitimately say, not exactly. That's a carriage bolt. Watch, this is, you're setting yourself up for a bobo switch, yeah? Just a switch between the hands. And because it's such a ridiculous thing, people don't really think about it. In throwing that from here to here, you just do the switch like that. And this allows you to lift it up and show the head. You know it's a carriage bolt because it's got a big head. But this is now the exchanged bolt with the 2 nuts on it. So they actually see that, come out. A carriage bolt and 2 nuts. I turn slightly usually here because I don't want to flash that, and it's a very natural movement that goes into your pocket. Now you play this up as much as you want, daring, defying, and all the rest of it. But do make the movement, twisting it on. Don't just sort of throw it in. After all, that's what you're saying you're doing. Make a little twisting movement. Play the game, and you'll be surprised. They'll grab for it quite often and say, ooh, wow. And then, of course, it's up to you how you want to go on from there. I just normally lean over and go. So that is very simple, very clean. You start without the sweaty hands beating you. I have to tell you a quick story. I was doing a stage show which I had some coin manipulation. I was first up, and I had to hold, I don't know how many damn coins in my hand. It was either Mouse's Dream, or there was something, in fact, I'd be doing it more. And the MC went on and on and on, and I was pacing behind the curtains, and I put the coins over there, pointing my hands. It is not doing the damn tricks that's the problem. As you often know, when you're in a show, you just don't know what the hell's going to happen. You've got to be prepared. So then I used to carry a little paper towel around and be ready, and that sort of thing. And that's what you learn. Okay, that's sort of a fairly cute effect, that one. And I think you might want to try something like that. Story tricks, I find, invariably go down very well any kind of audience. Now, I want this second piece is sort of a void of the imagination kind of thing. I'm sure as magicians, you've all had an imagination that you're in some fantastic place, in the Palladium in London, doing your piece, which is going over extraordinarily well. Or you're in the Magic Castle, baffling with the greatest brains of magic. Well, I had a dream. I was asked to go and perform at a nudist convention. And it's a very strange dream, I'm telling you. And I said, what the heck am I going to do there? And he says, well, would you be prepared to come along? Well, they're hearing my dream. I mean, you do things that you wouldn't do normally. And I said, well, as long as I can wear a coat and stand behind a table, then I'm happy I'll do it. So I decided I had to get something for the show. And I went into this place called the Bare Essentials. And I asked them if they had a purse, because I thought maybe I'd do a little bit of coin magic. So yes, sir, we got the purse. This is the purse that we use in the nudist company. You see, there's nothing in it at all. It's absolutely empty. It has hardly a frame. It's just the bare bones, you might say. So fine, we'll use that. But I have to have some coins, too. So for this particular thing, yes, I said, I know what I'll do. I'll take one of these coins in here, if I may, and have one silver coin. Okay, that's fine, a nice silver coin. And maybe a copper coin to go with that, just to sort of set it up. Good. And another copper coin. Well, that's 2 copper coins in silver. And another copper coin. Oh, so that's not bad. 3 fairly large copper coins and a silver. Better if you're closer, but I hope you can see it. And of course, the nudist purse. Now, we've got 1 copper coin, 2 copper coins. For those who do card tricks, you kind of set up a little fan and have 3 copper coins and a silver. And they're rather large and rather attractive. Now, I won't get behind the table, get down a little bit here. Nudist colony, don't forget. But I'm distracted, some of my misdirection, it wouldn't matter. So 3 copper coins and a silver. Now I want you to watch very carefully because one of those is going to transfer immediately from the left hand to the right, but you can't hear it. It's a silent transfer. And being a nudist colony, what you see is what you get. 1 copper here, and 2 copper and a silver in the left hand. Now let's go over that again. 1 copper, 2 copper, and the silver. Blow the moisture off. 1. As they say, if you're a magician, you do it with a fan, like that. 2 copper and a silver, and a copper in the right. 2 copper and a silver in the left, 1 copper in the right. Watch again. Another coin passes. If you're close, you'd hear it. What you see is what you get. It's a nudist colony. 2 coppers and a copper and a silver. Now, it's getting tough now, if you know what I'm up to. 2 coppers, a copper and a silver. Watch carefully. The left hand. 1, 2, and of course, in this hand here, 2 as well. Copper and silver, 2 copper. Yeah, that's right. Now this is different. We'll get down to this stage. Watch carefully. 3 copper in the right hand now, and just the silver in the left. Just 1 silver coin. That's all you use. And of course, a hand. I want you to watch the last one. This is difficult. There we have 1 silver and 3 copper are now passed to the right hand. Now, of course, this is fine. I'm doing this with nudist colony. I'm kind of impressed. They didn't have any pockets or anything. I said, but, you know, I took it out of a special little purse. Maybe I should put them back into the special little purse to finish, because you should never finish a trick that doesn't look, you know, quite right. Okay, that's fine. Silver, into my little purse. 1 copper. I was getting rapt attention from the front row. I thought they were applauding, but actually they were getting up and down on their rather hard seats. And another copper goes in. I was just about to close this up. The guy in the front row, not you necessarily, sir, but where you were sitting, he said, I said, hey, you're a Texan, aren't you? And he said, how do you know? He said, well, you've got a rather large hat on. So he said, yeah, I'm a Texan. He says, I'm going to offer you big money if you show me how to do that trick. I thought, well, I don't make much money at this game. It's not for money making. I says, okay. He says, here, I've got a Texan dollar for you, and I'll give you that for it. And I said, well, that's rather cheap. You shouldn't be doing that. I'll just take that. He said, but it's just an empty purse, sir. He said, well, fine. You know, explain it to me. And I said, well, you gave me the damn Texan dollar. I'm not going to give you any money for that at all. You can actually do that very closely. There are no angles on it at all. Let's just run through it. Again, if your hands are dry, it's a little easier with all these things. I'll show you all the little gimmicky things that go with it. Into the right pocket goes this. And I'll tell you more about this little gizmo in a moment. That goes into this pocket. There's one shell coin, but it doesn't have to be necessarily an English half crown going on the copper. It's English half crown, which is a little bigger. You can see it better than a $1/2, but you can do it with 4 $1/2s. Or an expanded half going over pennies. Same idea. All explained if you're interested even in some notes. Okay, these I palm, finger palm in the left hand, well before you get major attention on you, which, as you know, is part of the misdirection game. So these are finger palmed here, and my wisdom to you is put the shell coin on the outside, because if you put it anywhere else, it's likely that the shell will drop off when you don't want it to, but you have control of it if it's the first one here, as you can see here, the outer coin, just a small coin. So you go through your diddly-do and take out the purse, open up the purse, play the game as best you can, look into it, a little askance and all that. Now it goes into the hand quite naturally. Finger comes in. You've got to take the first coin out, and I reverse it as I do it, so what you see is actually that. And the reason for that is, if you have it that way out, the penny or whatever can drop out. Got the idea? So that is the reversal. That's why it's important that you have it that way. So when you pick it out, you're actually doing the reverse there when you show it. Coin with the shell must be the first one out. It's the bottom of the pile. Then, whatever you want, showing the pennies that count, and they go on top of the coin with the shell. 3. Close up your purse and put it in the pocket that has the big coin gimmick. Now, the big coin gimmick is just a coin that's big enough to go through into the purse, through the mouth of the purse. But on the back, I made a little bag out of felt, kind of felt you use on pool tables. Just a tiny little pocket in there. It's on the back. It's described on the notes if you're interested, but you can see it, you should remember it. Size should be big enough that you can put coins if you can't see them on the front, and can go into the little purse. So you've got the purse frame, the gimmick here, and now 1, 2, just as if you were fanning. 3, this comes to the 4, you just push off the shell. In other words, you're here, and you just push off the shell. And it doesn't really matter if it makes a noise. It might make a bit of a noise, but you've moved it up so quickly to the rest of it just really sounds like it's clicking against here. Show these, they really don't know what you're doing at this stage. So the first one is a real game. You can get away with almost murder the first time because they're not sure. Just 3 coins and 3 of them are copper and 1 silver. As you close them, of course, if you close this, the shell will cover the first coin, leaving just 2 and the silver, and in this hand, play your game. What you see is what you get. Oh, some dumb comment to that. But the point is, you know, you want to have some continuity. That's what I look for. Okay, the copper. Now, the reason why, if you're a real blind magician, you probably got a point like that that would appear here automatically, and there are some highly gimmick stuff that you can do there. But in a sleight of hand of any kind, you've got to at least get close to the other hand. So my view of it is, the reason you're doing this is you're sort of blowing off the dust here, and you're showing them as a fan each time. Okay? 1 copper, 2 copper, you push it off again, you've got 2 copper, but you've held 1 back. So you've got 1 deep finger palm and 1 in the top finger palm, 2 here, so you're able to show that, which is kind of convincing. 2 copper and a silver, 1 copper in the right hand. Close these up, as we did before. The copper on the top will be covered by the shell, so in effect you already have 1 copper and 1 silver, and you've got your second one to do whatever you want to show here. Okay, now down to the third. Again, same principle. 1, 2, now, I didn't do it as cleanly as I want, but what you can do it with a little practice, you just push off 2 of those 3 pennies and hold them up like that. So you've got 1 in here, and 2 are showing. So, silver and a copper, and 2 coppers. Hands come down again, close the shell on top. Third, makes 3 here, and 1 here. Clean, it's as good a vanish as you can do. Last one, well, you can think of dozens of ways, but I don't think you should waste much time. You've kind of got their attention. You put it in, you look at that hand, the misdirection is reasonable. You're down to doing whatever you're doing in here, and you show that it's come across to the right hand. Now, you could leave it at that. It'd be a reasonably good trick. Coins across. But it seemed to me it would be more fun to sort of play along a bit more and go to the pocket and say, well, it seems that we should put coins back into the purse. You put your hand in your pocket, which is normal. You feel for the coin, and you can feel it because it's got a rough bag. You can feel the pocket with your thumb, and you get it into that position. And you pick up the frame. So as you come out of your pocket, and they can see it's an awkward frame to pull out, so if you're having a little trouble, it doesn't matter, it's natural. You can't pull a frame that looks like that easily out of a pocket. So don't worry about it, in other words. Fumble a little fun. So, you've got 3 coppers and a silver, you've got the frame, you open up the frame, and this in effect is what you've got. Do it from the back. First coin, say the silver, doesn't matter which one, comes in, goes, and it goes into the little pocket. And the second one does the same. 2, 3, and 4. And then you've got to have some specious reason for whatever this thing is in here, other than just say, ooh, coin. I think you can have some fun with it, make up some story. The guy was trying to buy it off me, he offered me big money. Wow, where for that? Big money, yeah, Texas coin. Now, your thumb is big enough to close that so you can actually hold it at the tips, upside down. So you can treat this not like it was, be careful, just very naturally, like that. No one is right. I don't think you can put anything down and treat it like that. So you throw it up there, at the same time close your fingers a little here. So if they're watching this, they might think you are keeping the coins behind this as an extra one. Now, if you turn slightly, even at very close range, I mean, almost people all around you, you turn like that, drop it in, you won't hear anything. Again, a neat piece of sort of misdirection. Close this up as if it's finished, and then, so, oh yes, you never did find out how the trick was done. Okay? That has been an interesting piece over many years. That sort of has developed slowly as you go along. Could I have, if there was a lady here, fine. This is, you're going to have to be a lady. Someone's going to have to play a lady. Would you be a lady? Well, yeah, not because you're not feminine at all. Yes. She's the kind that gets ahead of it. Michelle. That's right. Michelle, could you move your seat forward? I'm for you. Now, Michelle, first, I really want to impress on you that I'm not embarrassed. I want to say this to the group, but you know, there are some magicians who delight, as part of their entertainment, in getting some poor female who's terribly vulnerable and embarrassing her to the so-called entertainment of other people. I think it's brutal and shouldn't be done. You will find many opportunities in normal repartee with whoever it is, female or male, that you're going to have fun. And a little twinkle is possible there without being rude, but never, never embarrassed, and sense the sensitivity of that person. So you adjust your role to that person. Now, for this act, I want you to be a sweet, young, highly emotional young lady who's been picked from the audience because you as a magician have perceived she's exactly the right person to come up with help. Now, for this really is a test. It's an experiment in which I use business cards. See the business cards? There's really no business. These are blank cards, but this is purely a test that we're going to do. Now, Michelle, would you just put your finger in and take one of those out? Okay. Wouldn't matter which one. They're just cards, okay? Business cards. Now, I'll show you exactly what you have. I'll tell you first, so you don't get embarrassed. First is a test of strength. Test your strength. Then I'm going to test your numerical ability. That's arithmetic, mathematics, calculus, trig, that kind of thing. And then there's an emotional test. But we don't get to the emotional test until you pass the first two. Now, would you hold your... I'll show you exactly what I want you to do. Okay, I want you to hold the card like this and tear it right down the middle. Through the middle, just like this. Okay? You do that? You manage to do that? That's the strength part. Very good. Now, when you put them together, I told you. Would you put them together and tell me how many you have? Two. So far, so good. Now, would you turn and just tear them again through the middle? Just like that. Very good. Oh, she's pretty strong, this lady. And when you put them with the others, now how many pieces do you have? 4. Careful. 4. You're progressing extremely well. I'll take you to a higher level. Now, this actually is quite tough. I want you to tear those pieces in half. Yes. It's not that easy, is it? Oh, my goodness. Yeah, oh, it's exceptionally good. Strength, you pass the test. Put them together, and if you get this answer right, you can go to the next level. About how many have you got? 8. Really? You counted them? Brilliant. Now, we're going through the emotional tests. I believe you have the attributes in these pieces. These are going to be used in a very important way. Micheline, would you hold your hands out like you rub your hands to get rid of the sweat? I love it. That's good. Because there's tension, natural. Okay. I'm going to put these down into your hand like that. 1. And these are, as you can see, just sort of little pieces of card. 2. I'm going to count them out. 2, 2, 3, 3. That's 4, and that's 4. Okay. Now there is a lot of tension because you're holding them. Now one of these hands is slightly heavier than the other. You're going to feel it instantaneously because you're a highly sensitive person. Which hand is heavier than the other? Okay, close your hand and turn it over. Just hold it like that. Now these are going to play a significant role at the moment. You may relax your hand, actually, thank you very much, but keep this one in place. Now, in my pocket here, actually, I have a pen. And I'm going to take one of these pieces. This is the emotional test. And I'm going to put a big red X on it, just like that. We'll see. Just close up by the flipping around. Now, you said, do you remember that thing with a buttercup? That if you take a beautiful buttercup and hold it under someone's chin, and it glows yellow, they like butter? Maybe that wasn't your generation. Okay. Was that our generation? Do you remember, Brian? Oh, vaguely. Anyway, that was it. You know, when I was young, you could hold a buttercup under a young lady's chin, and you gave her this BS about it being like butter because she's not gorgeous. It gives you a chance to talk to her when you're absolutely tongue-tied. So, here is the equivalent emotion test. This X is a symbol for kiss. Oh, damn right. I'm going to hold this under your chin. Oh, James, look. You notice, James, that it's glowing red under Micheline's chin. Micheline, you're blushing. Goodness me, you are an emotional young lady. I'm not sure we should continue with this. It seems to indicate that you like being kissed. Would you turn your hand over very slowly as you're thinking of the high emotional kiss? Open your hand. And what do you see? Every single little piece has been affected by the strength of your emotions. Thank you. You now can give a little kiss to the lady if you so wish. They might have the camera on me. The genesis for this was a long time ago. In Tarbell, volume 2, 3, or something like that, there is a trick with big X's on a rather large piece, and it's a stage trick for power, but not close-up. I saw that being done in 1970 in Brussels as part of a lecture. And I thought, geez, it's a great trick, but I mean, you're stuck doing it in a parlor situation, and that doesn't come along very often, or maybe room or a theater. So let's put it down to business card size. And that's exactly what I have done. Now, let me just take I made a couple of these up here for you. You take a business card, blank, which you can buy easily. These are the blank kind. That I'll put aside for a moment because I'm just going to go through a process first. You just mark one card like that. My notes have this gimmick in. It's very expensive. In case my explanation isn't good enough. But it's like that. You place that on the top and you turn it over, so now it's the bottom. So in effect, it's the bottom card of the pack. And the red X's, or whatever you put, are towards you. And then I put it in anything that I can tell which end is up and which side. So I now know that this little thing, or whatever I put it in, the back end of that has the X's facing up. Okay. Use whatever story you wish. I think this is kind of a cute story. And this is developed. It was called Extraordinary Transfer when it was in the Linking Ring in 1973 or something like that. And a number of magicians picked it up. One very well British magician by the name of Rowe, W.E. I don't know if you know him. He said when he got hold of this, geez, I love that trick. It's the kind of thing you carry around in your pocket and play it with your girlfriend and all the rest of it. And Gene Anderson, who's a guy of mine, picked it up and he says, that's ideal. And they all focused on the idea of the kiss. I have the X, but I didn't think of the idea of calling the X the kiss. It was just an extraordinary transfer. So I thought, the kiss is nice because of the fitting of the bag. Okay, reason why it's this way. You take these out, and you're blaring away about these being your business cards, and the business has not been so good recently, as you can see, they're all blank. Well, they are. Handle them very casually. Even if you happen to expose the bottom ones yourself, you are here, no one's going to see it. So just don't worry about it. Just do a normal riffle and get the best looking lady you could possibly get up to. You know what you're looking for here at the end result. So look for the person you feel is going to go along with the game. You can notice that in an audience, or you've been watching beforehand. So you get a sense that this lady's going to play along. And they're the fun ones. You can maybe stretch things a little bit more than that. Okay, she takes one, whichever one it happens to be, and it doesn't matter. Meantime, I put those on the table, but I put them, I just turn my hand over. Now you might say, why not have the second one? Well, because sometimes, if you get a rather stubborn person, they'll take the top of the second card. So to really guarantee your safety, I put it on the bottom. And it's such a natural action, you put them down like that. And because you don't make anything of it. Now this card has got 4 X's at the back. The back end. Now, Michelin, please, thank you. Now I want you to, I'm going to give you this little test. What the hell are we doing otherwise? We're going to have this little test here. I promise I won't embarrass you. It's very important because this person is scared. You're going to ask them trigonometry questions and calculus. And then naturally it's good because you want to create some little bit of tension with the audience as well. Anyway, she's hanging on to it. You immediately pick it up. So look, I'll help you. I'll show you what to do. Gives you the excuse of the hills of appearance. Good. They all look alike to me. So, totally natural. Don't put much weight on it. It's not that damn important. It shouldn't be. You really stare and try and get it exactly down the middle. Then you put more importance than it deserves. Right. I'll just go through this. Imagine she's doing the same. You, if anything, slightly over to the other half because you don't want to stare into the X's. Immediately this goes under there. The modus operandi vanishes because you can show it. Don't sort of say that. You could see it enough times in the casual sort of movement. I don't have to draw attention to it. She's doing the same, you're playing it along. Turn it around, and you do exactly the same again. Show, goes under, you're talking up the numbers, what you're doing. Once again, this is now going to be in 4, And it is actually quite tough to tear, especially if it gets damp, because certain types of cardboard get very difficult. And you may need to experiment a bit in deciding the best cardboard, because ink bleeds through some of them too. It shows rather very well. Okay, doesn't matter how you've done it, every other card now has an X on it. Fortunately, the top and bottom ones don't show it, so you can be very careful. Vanishing, thank you. That's lovely. You did extremely well. You passed the test. We're going into the emotional test now. And you just take her 8 pieces and say, that's fine, you passed. As if that's what was needed for that. Don't draw attention particularly to the need for these. Just carry on. Her 2 hands are up. There they are. There's one and there's the other. Well, one on the other. The first one obviously has an X on it. It'll go onto the right hand. Imagine it's you. Left, right, and then I sort of stop. Don't show it every time, because why are you only showing one side? It just emphasis. Then again, 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 and the last one, and the last. Now you've got. It doesn't matter which hand you choose here. If Michael had said the left hand, I said that's great. I'll use those, and I take them. That's just what I need. He said his right hand, which suits me even better, because this is where I want to leave them. And I had them placed on his hand, if you notice, not in his palm, not at the end of his fingers, but just about at the crease. So I said, that's fine, and I turned his hand over, and that automatically turns them over. If you've got lots of confidence, you can just tell her to close that hand. But what I would do is I do that, and that automatically turns them over. So they're like that. You don't want to do it prematurely, so turn it over. Just protection. You now go through the mumbo jumbo stuff under the. Don't go straight from that into this. I think there's got to be some connection. And you'll find one. The buttercup things or the thing under the chin. And a lot of girls think that's kind of funny, and maybe along with that. And then I've actually, after you've played it up enough, depending on their nature, and they open and they look, and they really are rather surprised to find the 4 X's. Now, explanation clear? Gee, too bloody easy, isn't it? Okay, now.